Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Podium Picks. Sean Woodland and Tommy Marquez inside the Working Against Gravity studios. Tommy, we're coming off a very stressful weekend for you, so I just want to check and make sure you're doing okay today.
Yeah, a little crazy. Dallas Cowboys, not a great week.
Yeah.
Got to win, but at what cost?
Yep.
Lost, in my opinion, our franchise player and Dak Prescott to a horrific injury, and fingers crossed and thoughts and everything go out to him and his family in the recovery, that we get to see him back soon. But then Los Angeles Lakers that same day win an NBA title. I'm sporting my Kobe Bryant love shirt, which is actually the shirt that you got at your seat when we went to Kobe Bryant's final game in LA. So it was a special commemorative piece. I got my championship gear on the way already in the mail, so you'll be seeing me wearing that. But so a little back and forth, but I did get to see some fitness this weekend on a little impromptu trip, but I'm doing all right now. I've had some time to come down from.
All right. Well, let's talk podium picks. Today we're going back into the CrossFit world in honor of the games just a week away now, and they're going to be at the ranch. So we're going to do our top ranch moments. Now, these could be anything from 2007 to 2009, and then 2016 is in there as well, because technically the games were partially at the ranch in 2016 with the first three events. But before we get to that, we want to thank our presenting sponsor for today's episode, and that is Working Against Gravity, and they are the go-to online nutrition program if you're looking to get your nutrition and your performance really dialed in.
Yep. Working Against Gravity is an online nutrition coaching service and program. I've been using them for 4 years, and I can honestly tell you that it is so much more than that. They help you find a diet and build nutrition practices that become a part of your life rather than just something you're going to test out or try on and hop off, like Marston on the football team bandwagon. When you sign up, you get your very own nutrition coach. It builds you a custom nutrition plan. From there, the big power in the program is building accountability through weekly check-ins with 24-hour response times, unlimited messaging with your coach. And it's perfect for someone who maybe has struggled to find a diet or a nutrition plan that really sticks. I love it because when life throws a curveball at me, like, my team winning an NBA championship or, an impromptu flight up to the Pacific Northwest to watch a future games hopeful, podium hopeful. Mm-hmm. WAG is with me every step of the way, and those nutrition practices carry over regardless of where I'm at. They've worked with over 21,000 people, ranging from fitness coaches, teachers, parents, podcast hosts, and some people you're going to see compete this weekend, like Catherine David's daughter, Brooke Wells, both of whom have been on the program for multiple years. They're so confident in their program that if you follow it to a T and aren't stoked on your results after 90 days, they'll refund you down to the last penny. And it's an even better way to sweeten the pot is they've got a special deal for our listeners. You get $50 off your first month if you use the code ELITE50. Go to workingagainstgravity.com, enter the code ELITE50, and you get a cool 50 off your first month.
That's awesome. We love having Working Against Gravity on board with us. They are a great sponsor, and we'd highly recommend that you guys check them out. Okay, let's talk about podium picks now. I believe it is your turn to start. So these are our top moments from the ranch. We're going to do that when we get to the podium.
Oh, gotcha.
So we'll do. We're going to do our Spirit of the Games and Dark Horse first. Then we will do our Whoop podium after that. And we're gonna.
Sorry, I'm just so excited.
I know, because it's a good one today.
Yeah,
we're doing calories burned in a single day. So we'll get to that in a second. But we're going to start with the Spirit of the Games and the Dark Horse here for ranch moments.
Should I start with Spirit or Dark Horse?
It's up to you. You're kicking off here.
I'm going to start with my Spirit of the Games, and I think this is one of those moments is really the impetus for the actual Spirit of the Games type award going forward. Mm-hmm. Go way back, Sean, to 2008.
All right.
A dozen years ago.
A lot.
Do you know what the youngest athlete in the CrossFit Games individual field was?
In 2008. 16?
Nope. You're 2 years too late, Sean.
14.
Yes, 14. 14-year-old Callista Pappas was competing. And not only was she competing, it was her second year competing. She had competed in 2007, the year prior. Now, Callista was a young gymnast training CrossFit in her spare time. And the final workout was heavy squat clean Grace. So squat clean and jerks, 30 of them for time. And Callista, being a young 14-year-old young woman, was a little bit, I don't want to say in over her head, but the weight was very, very heavy for her, more so than just about everyone else. And it was clear that she was going to struggle through it, but it was one of those moments that really kind of motivated everybody, seeing this 14-year-old young woman when most of her peers are out doing all sorts of knucklehead stuff. She's out there competing at the CrossFit Games, throwing down and just grinding through these final reps to try and finish the workout. And I think it was maybe at or around body weight for her, because she was young and she was a smaller athlete. And I still have memories of, you can go on YouTube and you can Google, I think it's CrossFit Games 08, Callista Pappas in the clean and jerk finals, and you can hear like her shouts and screams as she's like fighting through every rep. And you're just like, man, I'm not sure if like that's the best idea, but I mean, it was one of those things that like,
but it was inspiring.
Yes, it was inspiring, and it was one of those foundational moments for the Spirit of the Games award, in my opinion.
I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah. My dark horse. This one is, I don't know if many people remember it, and it may just be one of the like things that have flown under the radar the most, but I genuinely enjoy it in the lore of this person as an athlete. And it was in 2009 on the opening trail run. I call this moment Miko Says Hello.
Okay.
So the trail run back and then, you had a trail run in 2007, and then it came back in 2009.
And it was longer in 2009, right?
It was longer. It was 7K in 2009. You had Chris Spieler and his iconic like headphones, like the old Walkman headphones that he would listen to as he ran. And out of nowhere is this dude from Finland that comes up and is running toe-to-toe with Chris Spieler. And as the story goes, pulls up next to Spieler as they're running, like during the run, introduces himself like, I'm Miko Salo. And like Spieler is like, take the headphones off, like what? And continues on his way and like keeps on moving. Now Miko would go on to finish second in the trail run behind Spieler, which got everyone's attention too. But it was like this moment of like him casually introducing himself while they're in the middle of the race, which you just wouldn't see that ever again. And then Miko goes on to win the whole thing and wins ahead of some guys that were heavy hitters at the time. Jason Kalipa, Moe Kelsey, Commando Steve Willis, Peter Edgid, Blair Morrison, Pat Burke, David Millar.
A lot of OGs.
Yeah, a lot of OGs. And Tommy Hackenbrook, which was his first year. But it was like this guy from Finland came out of nowhere, won it, introduced himself on the trail run to like a legend of the sport. And he's just turned out to be this Terminator who, like, I would say he's one of the few people that, like, first athletes that people were kind of intimidated of.
I would agree with that. And I just wish we had gotten to see him compete longer, because he was something special.
Yeah, he qualified again in 2013, if you remember. And he got injured before the games, and we didn't get to see him. It was kind of a bummer because we really wanted to see him compete.
Those are two good ones.
Yeah.
That I didn't even think of. So that's good. I will start with Spirit of the Games as well. So the Spirit of the Games for me goes back to 2007, and it's the hopper. It's the one. It was used one time, but it's the one piece of equipment that we have that was not used as a fitness implement. That is just as famous as any piece of equipment that we have ever used, and it still just sits there at the ranch. It's all rusted out, and I think some of the original like ping pong balls or rubber balls that they use, are still in there.
I mean, if I'm being honest, the CrossFit hopper is just a peanut roaster.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just famous because it was
hilarious.
And it chose the very first workout. It was 1,000 meter row and then 5 rounds of 25 pull-ups and 7 push jerks, 135,
which
95.
I think is
which at the time was aggressive.
Yeah, at the time it was like 125 pull-ups.
Yeah.
Yikes. And a set 135 push jerk at the time was
not light.
heavy. Yeah. For 7. And Annie Sakamoto's kid picked that.
That's right.
Because it's the one that pulled the balls out.
Held her up and pulled, So it's just and I think too it's very indicative, or it's a really good representation of the whole CrossFit methodology of we're going to get you ready for anything, unknown and unknowable, and we're going to prove it by just making up an event right here at the games to start things off, pulling it out of the hopper. And so I love the fact that they did that. I don't think they've done anything like that since, where they just kind of made up the event on the, not made it up, but determined it on the fly right there.
Yeah, the closest thing was, I would say, the vote for DT or double TT
Right,
would be
but-
like the closest
yeah.
modern equivalent. But yeah, original winners of the Hopper, Jolie Gentry, Brett AFT Marshall. So
Yeah, so it was
good fun facts there.
It's just one of those things where when if you're lucky enough to go to the ranch, maybe you're doing an L1, or maybe you were there for the open announcement, or you were one of the few people that got to go in 2016 and be part of the events that were there. It's one thing that people all want to see. It's just, and it's not a piece of workout equipment. It's just this thing that was used one time, but has blown up into the sort of legendary implement that was used. And I would love to see them bring it out again. Maybe they'll do it again this year in some way, shape, or form to determine something. So my Spirit of the Games award goes to the Hopper from 2007. Now my dark horse is also from the same year as yours.
Okay.
And this is Annie Thorisdottir's first muscle up. And it was one of those because it's one of the first times that we've gotten to see someone who would turn out to be like the first legend or a great competitor in a situation that she couldn't handle or couldn't complete. Usually nowadays when we see these up and coming athletes, they put on these great performances and we notice them because of what they did, not because of what they didn't. And Annie could not do a muscle up. She couldn't do it. And she was getting coached right there on the spot. And she finally hit one, and everybody went nuts. And she looked like, the cool thing I think for people to realize who are either just starting CrossFit right now or have been in it a while and you haven't done your muscle ups, you haven't gotten muscle ups yet, and you're practicing them, go back and watch that, because Annie Thorisdottir looked like everybody has looked when trying to get that first muscle up.
You got the feet, the bicycle kicking.
You got the chicken wing thing, kind of trying to get it through there. And I think it's just a cool experience to see that and be able to say, hey, she was there at one point too.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Tanya Wagner about this, is that because she was competing back and forth with Annie at the time. Tanya said just based on everything that Annie had done up to that point, she knew that she was going to be good. But to have her first games remembered for something that she couldn't do, much like Rich Froning with the rope climb. It's that one sort of the failure, but it was a cool moment, and to have her career then launched after that, and to see what she was able to accomplish after that point is it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and man, I got more on that later.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all right, cool. So we'll get to that. We're going to get to our podium in a second, but before we do that now, we're going to get to our Whoop podium for the week, and we were trying to think about what to do before the show here, and we decided that this is October 14th we're recording this, so we're almost halfway through the month of October. So we're going to take a look at the calories burned in a single day in October so far. So who's burned the most calories in a single day in these 14 days so far in October? So it's not like a cumulative thing. It's just a single day total for the month, and who has the top score for that.
So these are the top 10 single-day calories burned across the entire. This takes into account the entire month so far for the Talking Elite Fitness Whoop group, and more about our group shortly after. Number 1, Brian Pierce, 5,585 calories. Number 2, Liz Dalmas. She's a day strain queen, 4,744 calories. Matt O'Brien, number 3, 4,396. Phil Soucy, 4,369 calories, playing some tennis. There you go.
Man.
Floyd Simmons, number 5, 4,324 calories. Daniel Rivera, 4,192 calories. Tino Robbins, 4,075 calories. Alex Schnitzler, 3,991 calories. Best name in the game, H.C. Redfield, 3,928 calories. Still love that every time we get to read it. And number 10, top 10 for calories burned in a single day, is Nick Hassan at 3,765 calories. What's your best so far this month? You were what?
I think it's like it might be in the high twos.
Okay, yeah, I'm 2,930.
But I think about that 5,500. I couldn't eat that much if I tried. Like, I have a hard time. I try to get around 3,000 calories, give or take a little bit, depending on what I'm doing. That's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, these are just monstrous. I mean, I hope that they better be on that, like, what is it? The swimmer Michael Phelps diet.
Yes. He pounds like 10,000 a day or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Insane.
you do that. Man.
Oh, man.
I would never stop eating.
And for anyone on our Whoop group, so I just heard back from some of our Whoop representatives. We're getting our Whoop group switched over to their new community-style platform. You will be able to use the code TALKFIT to join our Whoop group within the next day or so. We're recording this on Wednesday, so if by Friday, and after you'll hear our main episode, check it out. Put in the code capital TALK, capital FITT, and you should be able to be added in. And for those of you that have hit us up saying it didn't work or that it put you into a different group that didn't have everybody, we're getting that fixed, getting everyone transferred into one big group. So hang tight and keep trying it out, and we'll give you guys some updates.
Yeah, and if you haven't gotten on the Whoop train quite yet, check them out, whoop.com. You can use the code TALKING15, that's TALKING15, and you will save 15%. Can't recommend those guys enough. It is a game changer, man. Definitely check them out. Okay, let's get to the podium now. So we are number 3 for our ranch moments, and you're up.
So my number 3 is actually Annie's first muscle up.
Yeah. See, so, I like when we pick the same one because I feel like it's like with Brian Friend. I feel a little smart, so I'm glad that we both have the same one.
And so this was I feel like every truly great athlete has some level of adversity that they have to overcome maybe in the early stages. I mean, you look at Michael Jordan and the Bulls. I mean, you could even say like LeBron now, like coming up in the Eastern Conference and the Cavs having to go through the Celtics and then finally getting to the NBA Finals, losing multiple times, then finally getting over the hump. Katrin Davis' daughter, great example, legless rope climbs. Rich Froning rope climbs. Matt Fraser, 2 years, second in a row, had the blow up on the soccer chipper. Annie Thorisdottir, for her, it was the ring muscle up because there was a chunk of them in the final workout that year. And if you don't remember, going into that final workout, Annie Thorisdottir was 7 points behind Tanya Wagner. Tanya Wagner was in first overall. She had 47 points. It was points per placing. Annie Thorisdottir was in second overall with 47. And all she needed to do was finish the workout, and she would basically be on the podium for the most part because so many women either were cut or did not finish. She gets stopped in her tracks with the ring muscle up, hadn't done them, was literally learning them in the background. And she, like you said, John, she looked like everybody else learning their first muscle up. And her finishes up to that time were 4th, 9th, 14th, 4th, 1st, 15th, 7th. Incredibly consistent for this new, young, still wet behind the ears woman from Iceland. And I think everyone felt that sense of joy for behind the first muscle up to where you saw referees. I think it's Chuck Carswell cheering.
I think it was
her.
him, yeah.
Yeah, everybody else just getting pumped. And then from that moment forward, the fact that she was able to, not get defeated by this, get that first muscle up and do it in the manner that she did despite never even doing one before, you kind of had the feeling that, okay, there's not much that she's not going to be able to figure out at some point. And, she was this girl that was crushing workouts with a smile on her face, and she would go on to be, I think that was the catalyst moment for her going on to be the first true queen of CrossFit as far as the sport's concerned. And I think it's fitting that the next year she finishes second behind Kristen Clever. And the very first workout, she is faced with the movement that got her the year before, and that's in Amanda, the first workout at the StubHub Center. And, you have 21 ring muscle-ups total. So, and she was able to, put together a decent enough finish there and show that she had overcome the muscle-up gap to enough an extent where she was able to podium. And I think that was huge. And it catapulted the first. I think and I'm going to get a little meta here, but if that moment was one of the reasons that helped spark Annie Thorisdottir's career, Annie Thorisdottir's career is one of the moments that helped spark the sport. So you can trace a lot of the roots of the sport as it is now to singular moments like that. Similar with Rich Froning in 2010 as well. So I think those It's certainly high up on my list. It's top 3 for me on my podium, and the only reason it is behind it because there's some other moments that are just so nostalgic. One that's so nostalgic for me, and another that I think it will stand in the halls of all-time greatness as far as when someone decides to step aside.
Yeah, well, this is a great segue into mine. So my number 3. So my number 3, and it's focused around one guy, but I think there's a bigger theme here. And my third place one is Mikko Salo's coming out party in 2009.
Yeah,
because I think you could lump Annie into this category as well. Because for the first 2 years of CrossFit Games, we joke about it all the time. Backyard barbecue at a dusty ranch in Aromas, California, and it was just basically local is too. It doesn't encapsulate what I'm the feeling enough, but it wasn't a worldwide competition. Mm-hmm. And I think in 2009, when Mikko Salo shows up and Annie Thorisdottir as well, is when the CrossFit Games really became the global phenomenon. And then I think that is why. Now, I know they were going to try to do them again, I think, at the ranch in 2010. But that's, I think, one of the big catalysts for why they needed to find another venue, because this thing was becoming too big for that piece of property.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just seeing a guy that really I don't think a lot of people had heard of show up and, introduce himself to Chris Spieler during an event and then go on to win the whole thing. And the biggest regret I have is that I remember in 2011 going to the games as a fan, and I think that's where he ruptured his eardrum in the water and then had to withdraw from the competition after that. That's really the last time I think we ever saw him at the games.
Yeah.
I've said this, he's like, kind of Bo Jackson. I think it's like if he hadn't gotten that, the history of injuries, what would his career have looked like? And I think he would have been a lot of fun to watch compete, in like 2012, 2013, and maybe even beyond if he stays healthy. Mm-hmm. But Mikko and Annie really put the sport on the world stage, and I think took things to the next level as far as what the venue now needed to be in order to hold all the fans, because then you started getting fans coming from around the world. I think that was probably the first time that we had not only athletes but fans who came to watch Mikko, and then it was pretty common to see when you would go down to Carson and you would run into people from all over the world. So Mikko and Annie's participation that year really catapulted CrossFit into a global sport. So that's my number 3.
Yeah. That's a great one. The international implications of 2009 were huge.
Yeah.
And I remember when they brought like the Jumbotron on top of the bus, you were like, oh, this is getting big. All right, so my number 2, and this is funny. This is one that like I'm not sure a whole lot of people remember, and it has a little bit to do with, 1, the announcing, and 2, the nature of the coverage.
Okay.
So this is 2016 when Matt Fraser destroys the Ranch Trail Run.
Okay.
And this is why, and there's a little context here. So that year in 2016, big surprise, they went to the ranch. I didn't even know about it until like right before it happened.
Yeah.
And I didn't even get to go. And and there's 3 events, going on: the Ranch Trail Run, revisiting 2009, the Deadlift Ladder, revisiting 2009, and then the Ranch Mini Chipper. Matt Fraser, coming off heartbreaking second place in 2015, has been on, again, a warpath so far throughout the season. And comes out on this first trail run. It's dirty, it's grimy. You got to climb and traverse stuff, and poor Lucas Zepeda. I think he got like poison oak all over his body from helping cut that trail. And I remember, because we didn't have live coverage, it was streamed on CrossFit Facebook's. I think it was Facebook Live on the CrossFit Games channel.
But we didn't have any. Yeah, there was no commentary, and I don't think there was. Yeah, you're right.
There wasn't any like professional coverage. And so Jonathan Haynes is running around. He's running social media. He's on the social accounts, live streaming from his phone. Matt's out in the lead. Josh Bridges is behind him. And there's a point where you kind of like turn up this hill. You go out and about, you do some stuff, and then you come back down. So if you're standing in the middle of the 2 paths, you're in a position to cover both sides. I can't remember what it was. Oh, they missed Matt going up. They missed Matt going up when they were running to that spot. And so all they saw was Josh Bridges coming up.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I remember this.
And they're like, oh, gosh. Like, Matt must have really fallen off and crashed hard. I think he came out too hot because Josh Bridges is in the lead now. And Rory says it. He verbalizes it. And I think it's on the broadcast. I don't know if it still lives anywhere. And then all of a sudden you hear, who's that? And all of a sudden you turn around and it's Matt coming out the other side, not just not having fallen off, but he has built a massive lead, so much so that like the people on the ground missed it because he was like a whole, like, I'm going to use nautical terms, a whole fathom ahead of second place in Josh Bridges. And you could hear this, and you could see it in the live comments, and you could hear it like this collective, like, oh, shoot, from everybody. Like, and I remember us watching, like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Matt's that far ahead. He's going to win the trail run. This is the opening. And that was, like, to me, that was, like, that was that first firelit arrow that just got sent out onto the village raid when Matt just destroyed everybody. And it was so fitting because we just assumed like, oh, he fell off because it was an insane pace for him to hold. No, he's just that much further ahead, and this is what we can expect for the next 4 to 5 years. And that moment, like, I think Matt won the games in that moment.
I remember, he was the first guy to ever win the first event and win the games.
Yeah.
And it was the only event he won the entire competition. But I remember when I had a notepad because I was trying to keep track of who was doing what, and just going scratch, Matt Fraser. And then I was looking at the time, and then I remember talking. I go, "Is this right? Like, did he? He's not. Did he miss a checkpoint? No, he didn't. He was just throttling people.
That was like, I remember Pat because Pat loves watching people suffer through runs. And then when he saw Matt win that trail run, he was just like, oh,
yeah,
no. Brent Fikowski, for reference, finished third that year in that event. And Matt beat him by over 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So
crazy. In fact, be thankful that you didn't go that year because just a little aside here, that was the year, if you guys remember, when I think it was Southwest and a bunch of other airlines were having problems with their computers and flights were getting canceled left and right. So we had to fly. We were scheduled to fly back Thursday night because we had to do some post-production stuff. So we're going to fly back Thursday evening from San Jose to Carson. We were at the gate in San Jose. Our plane had pulled up, and they canceled the flight because the flight crew had been working too long. So here it is, like 6 p.m. on a Thursday night, and we've got to get to L.A., and there's a bunch of us. It was like me, Joe, Roe, a bunch of the production staff. So we ended up renting like 2 vans, driving through the night. I got in at 3, had to be up at 5 the next morning to get to go do Murph. So that whole Friday I was going on no sleep. So you're lucky that you didn't get to go to that one. So all right, so that was your number 2. So my number 2, and this is it's sort of a moment that didn't really affect the sport, but affected the coverage. So this is 2008, and this is the final event, and this is Jason Khalipa's comeback. Because if you watch, the only video that exists of Jason Khalipa was his dad's camera, because the media crew at the time did not have the resources that we would have, years later. They basically wrote him off because it was at every second counts format, and he was so far behind that they didn't think he would be able to make a comeback. So they didn't even pay attention to Jason Khalipa. So if it hadn't been for Jason Khalipa's dad, we would not have footage of Jason winning the CrossFit Games on that last clean and jerk. And I think from that point on, as far as the media coverage goes, and I give Tony Budding a lot of credit for this because he was the media director at the time, he basically said, that will never happen again. We have to find a way to make sure that we don't miss a moment like that. And then 2009, Jumbotron comes in. Production gets a little bit bigger. 2010, a little bit bigger at the StubHub Center, and then it just grew from there. But that moment of Jason making the comeback, and then the only video we have is, thankfully his father was able to give us some footage. That helped catapult the coverage of the CrossFit Games to a more professional realm. Now, again, it was going to go that way, I think, anyway, because of the international participation that we talked about with Miko Salo and everything. But had they gotten lucky and gotten the finish that they thought they were going to get and covered the people that they were covering, and they were the ones who won, you never know. But the fact that they missed the guy who won, that changed a lot of things. And fast forward to 2015, and we totally missed Tia Toomey. So it's not like we totally solved the problem, but it got a little better. So Jason Khalipa's comeback in 2008 is my second place.
Well, Tia has given us plenty of moments to cover her ever since. Not to, but at no fault of her own, obviously. Funny. We're on the same page here because my overall podium #1 ranch moments is Khalipa's comeback.
Okay, good.
So to give everyone a little bit of history, the 2008 CrossFit Games were an every second counts format, meaning your total time across the weekend was tabulated to find the overall winner. Now, the way that worked, you did Fran, you did heavy chest to bar Fran, you did a deadlift burpee couplet, and there was a hill run as well. The hill run was short, very short though, more of like a hill sprint, and under 4 or 5 minutes. And then there was heavy squat, clean, Grace. Now, they had cut to there was the final heat of, I believe, 10 athletes in that final workout. And the final heat was loaded up. And I think at the time, Jason Khalipa was somewhere around 9th or 10th. And when they were, and you can see this in the Every Second Counts documentary, Dave Castro thought that he had the wrong heat. He was like, these are like the biggest, hitters at the time. At the time, you had guys like Josh Everett, Jeremy Teal, Pat Barber, Jeff Tincher, Ricky Frausto, Omaha Ricky Frausto, Dutch Lowy, Matt Chan, Chris Spieler, Bionic, Omar Torres. Some people probably haven't heard that nickname in a while. James Fitzgerald. Funny enough, Austin Begebing finished 13th that year. Dave Lipson 14th. But he was like, are you supposed to be here? Like, you have the right heat? And it's like, no, I'm Jason Khalipa. I'm this. Like, oh, okay. By the way, Jason was sporting a Santa Clara University Under Armour T-shirt, which I had that same shirt because they sold it in the bookshop. Go Broncos. And one by one, the way they accounted for the every second counts is based on your lead is when you started. So if you were 40 seconds ahead of second overall for the weekend, you started 40 seconds ahead. So the very first athlete to finish would be the CrossFit Games champion. And that's how they kind of accounted for that, to reinstill, I guess, the drama. So Spieler had, in heavy squat clean Grace, 45 seconds is like, I think it was about 45, 40-ish seconds, is forever. And it was assumed like, okay, so Chris Spieler is going to win the games. He gets off, he starts going, he's got like 7-8 reps before everyone else. And then as the workout goes along, you start to see some of the athletes starting to struggle. People starting to fail a little bit. Josh Everett, who was, I think, in second or third at the time, everyone was like, if Spieler doesn't win, Everett's going to win because he's the best. He was the best guy with the barbell. And slowly, one by one, and you can see the whole workout front to back, Jason Khalipa just doesn't stop. He squat clean thrusters it. He clusters it the whole time. And every time he as you see him start to get tired, you can hear his his future wife, because I think they got married that year maybe, or maybe right afterwards, screaming, "Back to the bar!" Austin Begebing, who was Jason's coach, who was finished competing, "Get your hands on it! Get your hands on it!" And one by one, you're like, "Oh my gosh, no one has finished yet," and he might win. And you get to 29, 30, and all of a sudden, you see him celebrate, and his judge signs off on it, and his whole crew behind him, and you're all watching this through the lens of Papa Khalipa's 1985 Panasonic handheld, and he wins the CrossFit Games out of nowhere, and everyone was focused somewhere else, and I wasn't in the crowd, but the collective kind of feedback was from everyone. Here's Jason Khalipa, 2008 CrossFit Games champion. Everyone goes, what? Like, gives the Tim Allen and sees this like gorilla of a man just celebrating up and down, and he wins the CrossFit Games. And that was, I think, the drama of like anything can happen. The sport, so it's, anything can happen is widely a sports idiom that's used everywhere else. Whether it's any given Sunday in NFL, on any given day, any team can win in the NBA, baseball, stuff like that. That was when that concept was cemented in CrossFit Games history, because now we're like, you're just one workout away, good or bad, from winning the CrossFit Games, from losing the CrossFit Games, or making a name for yourself and building a career. Jason Khalipa's career was launched that moment, to being a CrossFit Games champion, multiple-time podium finisher, arguably, behind Rich and Matt, as far as like Mount Rushmore moments. He's in the very least top 4. And now he has like, kind of a gym empire with NC Fit and everything that largely, in large part, benefited from his moment in the spotlight for the CrossFit Games. And I was the same age as Jason. We graduated from Santa Clara that same year, and the games happened maybe a month after we graduated. And I remember when I just started CrossFit shortly thereafter, and people are like, "Oh, the CrossFit Games champion is from Santa Clara," and I'm like, "Wait a second." Jason never came into the college gym, maybe once or twice, handful of times. But I remember, because you see him and he's like built like a cement truck. And you're like, oh, all right, little Bronco pride. There you go. And kind of the rest was history for that.
Yeah, that is one of those cool moments that you should go back. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely go back and check it out. And it's from his dad's camcorder, because that's the only footage they have. So, all right, my number one. And I started with sort of something that I thought really embodied the CrossFit methodology, and that's where I'm going to end as well. So my number one is the sandbag sprint up the hill in 2009. And because it was just, there was nothing pretty about it. There was nothing complicated about it. It's like, you're just going to pick these things up and you're going to run up that hill as fast as you can. And it's the beauty of intensity applied in a very simple test. But man, did that thing wreak havoc. And to this day, athletes who were at that games, who did that event, will say that's probably the hardest event they did. Didn't have a barbell, didn't have a rig or anything that you pushed that looked cool. It didn't have a slug. It didn't have the pig or anything like that. It was just run up a hill carrying these sandbags and have fun with that. And it looked to me like, when you see some of the shots, have you ever seen like a war movie where it's after a battle and you got all the wounded sort of just laying there, and it's maybe like a general and some of like walking through the scene? That's what it looks like. It's just like people everywhere just in pain and agony and on the ground. It was something that was just, to quote Pat Sherwood, a beautiful test. Just run up the hill as fast as you can. And I hope we see that again here in 2020 in some way, shape, or form, because it's if you see that, if you haven't been there in person, when you see that hill, whether it's from like a drone shot or a shot, you really don't get to see how steep it is. Even when you're there, sometimes it can be a little deceptive, and then you start walking up the damn thing, and you're like, oh, I would not want to run up this. But I love the fact that everybody thinks that who was there, that something so simple was so difficult, and to me, that really is what CrossFit is all about. We're going to take something very simple, but we're going to crank up the intensity, and you're going to suffer.
Oh, yeah. You want prime CrossFit media from back in the day? Go back and look up Sandbag Sprint Men 2009 CrossFit Games. We used to call this called booty lock.
Yes,
so in sprinting and track, if you ran a really hard 400, so a 400 race, or the 300 hurdles, if you ran so hard that you couldn't like open up your stride to the final ones, you get what's called booty lock, where your glutes and hammies just completely seize up,
mortis.
And you're like you're running like one of those like circus performers on stilts, like just swinging the legs around, and that's what you saw from these athletes here. Go on YouTube right now, Google 2009 Sandbag CrossFit. A video should come up that says Sandbag Sprint Men -2009 CrossFit Games. press play, then pause just so you can scroll. Scroll to about 728, 729.
Efforting.
728, 729. The real time code is 730, but it's hard to get exact.
All right, I'm at 727.
About 731 or 32, you're going to get a prime photo of one Pat
Oh,
Sherwood
there he is.
standing there shirtless.
Yes.
Just, you know.
Looking like he's questioning his life choices
Oh,
right
yeah,
there. He's like, do I really want to run up this damn thing?
Just a late 30s Pat Sherwood, all full of vigor and testosterone. And you're going to see him as number 164
Yep.
sprint up the hill and just find the pain cave. And Jeff Tincher, some classic CrossFit Games athletes there. You don't get to see young Ben Smith there too. You see him on the Jumbotron in a white T-shirt.
That's him?
That's Ben Smith.
I was just about to go like, man, that guy like in the white T-shirt looks like he just walked out of the crowd. That is Ben Smith.
That is Ben Smith.
Wow.
That is a young Ben Smith.
That is a young Ben Smith.
And you're going to see Pat go just die at the end. And it's one of my favorite things. Anytime I'm having a bad day, I just dial this bad boy up and watch Pat suffer because he has put me through so many just awful workouts. And it'll put a smile on your face. It really was a treat. It was one of my favorite events. I really hope they do something similar.
I do too. That's a good. I'm gonna save that for later.
Yeah.
Watch old Pat Sherwood run up the hill. What were some that? So I didn't have I had Matt Fraser winning the trail run. I ended up not making my list. Josh Everett's deadlift because we talked about that in a prior episode.
Yep.
I love that moment. But in like the bigger scheme of things, compared to the other ones, I couldn't put it on there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those were two of the big ones for me that I wanted to put on, but it just didn't make it.
Yeah. So the entire sandbag event qualified for me. Was on that list. Actually, Kalipa collapsing in 2009 on the first opening trail run of 2009, and people thought he was dead. And I think his wife was like,
"Here is dead."
I think his wife was like begging him to stop and not keep going, but he decided to.
Of course he did.
He crawled. He stumbled and fell before the finish line. The Josh Everett deadlift. I thought Tanya Wagner second to first in 2008 and 2009.
Yeah.
So Tanya finished second in 2008 to Katie Matter at the time, now Katie Henniger. And then, which actually, Katie winning the CrossFit Games is the reason why her and Bill got married.
Yeah.
And then now, obviously, they own and operate Rogue, so you could maybe thank that win for the dynasty that you have now. And then another one for me was Tommy Hackenbrook finishing in second place in 2009. So Tommy Hackenbrook qualified for the 2009 Games by virtue of the last chance qualifier.
Yes.
He ended up finishing second in the podium. When he left for the Games, he bummed a ride from people in his area to come out to the Games. I don't think he had enough from what I recall, he didn't have any sponsors. He didn't have enough money to get home. But I remember and people telling me that in 2009, he was going around to spot the group sponsors and stuff that were there, like, hey, I'm going to win the Games. You should sponsor me. And I think Forged Clothing was like, hey, we'll outfit you for the weekend or something like that, and you can wear our stuff. And then he goes on to finish second, and it was like he was the only person truly that believed in himself.
Yeah.
And that's all that mattered. And nobody else really did because they didn't know him. And sure enough, he goes and finishes second. Rightfully, one of the legends of the sport.
Yeah.
Podium finisher multiple times in the top 10. Was a pioneer for the team competition. And I just thought that was really cool in 2009. I remember people saying this guy was just trying to fish for sponsors in between events, bummed a ride with people to the Games and then finished second. And you're like, oh wow, all right.
That's that's pretty cool. I remember we had a podcast. I think you talked about that with Mars, right?
Yeah.
It was, that's a great story. So those are some good moments. I'm sure we're going to have some really good ones that are going to hopefully happen here in a week. And I we'll talk about it on our main episode if you guys haven't heard that yet, about maybe what we can expect from day one, because Dave's dropped some clues, so definitely want to check that out. Let us know what your top moments from the ranch are in the comments. Want to thank Working Against Gravity. Check them out, workingagainstgravity.com. Remember that code is ELITE50, so ELITE50. You can get $50 off your first month of nutrition coaching. And also want to thank Whoop. Go to whoop.com, WHOOP.com, and use the code TALKING15 to save 15%. That's it for us. For Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodland. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you guys next time.